People online and in real life, people for me and against me, ask me all the time, why did you go from fundamentalist evangelical Christian to atheist YouTuber and activist? Well, I didn't exactly mean to, but I'm really glad to be where I am, so there's a bit of a story to tell here. To be clear, the context of my life makes this a much bigger question than why do you make videos? That context is, I was raised in a family and in a culture where everyone unquestionably dedicated their life to serving Jesus Christ. Now, atheist activism, making these videos, running a conference, helping new atheists find community, is my full-time job. I quit my office job over a year ago to do this full-time. I think the best way to explain the change is to show how it wasn't actually sudden and extreme, but that there's an intricate story here. It happened gradually, and for reasons which I hope you'll see are rather sensible. My evangelical background. I've mentioned that I was raised fundamentalist evangelical Christian enough times on my channel for most people to know that by now, but what I need to make clear here is just how important that was to my life back then. In my family, my church, my school, and my group of friends, being Christian was not even a question. Everyone was expected to go to church multiple times per week, to pray constantly, to love God more than one's own family, to spread the gospel, and to dedicate one's entire existence to Jesus Christ. Having a personal relationship with Jesus wasn't just part of life, it was the only thing that life was meant for and the only purpose that anyone could have. This life was universally known to be fleeting and unimportant, except for its role in determining how people would spend the eternal afterlife. That afterlife, by the way, was either an eternity of pure bliss in heaven or of unimaginably painful torture in a literal lake of fire. Only the few people that believed in our specific gospel message went to heaven. Everyone else, regardless of any other factor, we thought, went to hell. If you put yourself in my former place, in that environment and in that belief system, it makes sense, if you care at all about other people, to dedicate yourself to spreading the gospel. I did and always have cared about others, so I dedicated my life to serving God and trying to keep others from going to hell. My plan of how to do that, now that I look back on it, was really unethical and embarrassing. I was getting my degree in counseling psychology at a Christian school, and I planned to become a licensed professional counselor. Then I would move to Utah, work in a practice with a counselor I already knew there, and use my influence as a therapist to convert Mormons under my care. Yeah. I see how manipulative that would be now, but luckily, I left Christianity right after getting my bachelor's degree, becoming an atheist. So this video isn't for explaining why I became an atheist. I've already made that video and it's linked in the description. For this video, just know that my deconversion was not the result of some emotional crisis, but of careful, rational thought. However, where I found myself socially after that experience was a pretty terrifying place. I didn't know any atheists. Everyone I knew fervently opposed everything I stood for. And until I became willing to be a pariah as an open atheist, I'd be expected to base every facet of my life on something I thought was false. I chose not to come out as an atheist for quite a while, but we'll get to that more in a bit. After getting past the initial shock and terror of being as alone and vulnerable as I was, I began to more closely examine the actual cause of that isolation, and I got angry. I and everyone I knew had been taught all our lives that the people like the person I was in that moment were confused, broken, immoral, and not to be associated with. Now I knew that the basis of that teaching was a lie, and that everyone I knew believed it and consequently hurt people for no good reason. If you can't sympathize due to your beliefs or your own experiences, then just empathize here. Put yourself in my place. I was surrounded by people who, because of their belief in the Bible as the inerrant word of God, taught that all humans were filthy and worthless without God, that LGBT people didn't deserve equal rights and should be converted to straight, that any science that disagreed with a literal interpretation of the Bible was wrong and should be purged from academia, that health conditions could be the result of demonic possession in many cases, and that anyone who disagreed with any of this was arrogant, confused, hateful, or even under demonic influence. Meanwhile, I'm thinking that the Bible is not the inerrant word of God, that it doesn't justify those beliefs as true, and that those ideas in their falsehood are hurting people every day. I